Hallo iedereen en welkom bij Ben je nog aan het kijken? De podcast waar ik, uw host Xander de Rijke, iedere week praat met gasten over een favoriete televisieprogramma. Het is te zeggen, dat is wat we normaal in de podcast doen. In mijn zoektocht naar wat een goede finale zou zijn voor het eerste seizoen kwam ik eigenlijk tot de conclusie dat het misschien leuk zou zijn om effectief met iemand te praten die heeft meegewerkt aan de shows waar we het over hebben. Of ze nu scripts geschreven hebben, de kostuums hebben gemaakt of simpelweg de lampen geleverd hebben. Ze zullen altijd een beter verhaal hebben over televisie dan een Vlaamse comedian uit het Meetjesland. Vandaar 2 speciale afleveringen om het eerste seizoen van de podcast af te sluiten en nu de eerste special van waar ik hoop er in de toekomst nog veel mogen volgen. En je nog aan het kijken. Mijn gast vandaag is een Amerikaanse componist en orchestrator die afgestudeerd is aan NYU en USC. Na zijn studies is hij onder de vleugel genomen door componist Christophe Beck en heeft hij kunnen werken aan onder andere The Muppets, Pitch Perfect, Frozen, Edge of Tomorrow en Ant-Man. Recent maakte hij de muziek voor Son of Zorn, Pen 15 en Plus One, wat oprecht een fijne romantische komedie is trouwens. Afgelopen jaar zette hij zichzelf helemaal op de kaart met de epische score van Cobra Kai, die hij maakte met zijn collega Zach Robinson, en natuurlijk met een van mijn persoonlijke favorieten, Jurassic World, Camp Cretaceous. Ik ben zeer enthousiast om hem te spreken, Leo Birenberg.
I see you have quite the setup behind you.
Yeah, I've been collecting for about... This is the tip of the iceberg, by the way. This is...
amazing.
15 or 20 years of Jurassic Park love.
Oh, wow. Awesome. So awesome. So awesome.
First of all, congratulations to you and Zach on Cobra Kai Season 3.
Thank you. It's a fun one.
Yeah, it's good. I binged it in a day, like you should.
Yeah. Oh, it's impossible not to. Like all of those seasons are so like, by the time you hit episode 5, you're just like, you can't stop. And I feel like season 3, especially because like for fans, they were waiting for so long.
Yeah.
You just devour it.
So from the little show that could on YouTube Red to the number 1 show on Netflix globally, how does it feel?
Oh man, it feels good. It was, Zach and I always joke about how we're like, you know, the ugly stepbrother or something like nobody cared about Cobra Kai except like the diehard fans. And what was crazy is that like, it was so huge on YouTube. Like, yeah. I think the first episode, which is like still up accruing views, has something like 100 million views. And like it had 80 million views since right after it premiered. Like it just totally insane numbers. But like nobody cared. And I think especially like in Hollywood, nobody really watched it. Like, I don't know, you find when you like work in the industry that there's like shows that like are popular and then there's shows that like people in the industry watch. Yeah. And they don't always cross over. And so Cobra Kai went from being just like a popular show that was like popular, but only within people who had YouTube accounts and like wanted to watch anything on YouTube, which is a lot of people, but it's not your normal entertainment market, to being this huge show where also everyone in the industry has watched it. And it's just like it's a totally different vibe. What's really crazy is that we had finished season 3 before the move to Netflix even happened. In fact, we were finishing it about exactly a year ago today. I think we might have been at the final mix like a year ago today. And so in the time that we've just been sitting on season 3, like the show moved to Netflix, got absolutely massive. And then we finally got to drop this new season. So did you feel the impact immediately when it went to Netflix last summer? Yeah, immediately. When did that come out? Like the end of August. And it was just a whole new world the next morning in terms of like Cobra Kai fans are intense, you know, like people are like really freaking into it. And like, and I think because it had such a cult following for a while, like Zach and I have been like incorporated into like the fandom brain trust in a way that a lot of composers are not, even when they're working on like, you know, big, you know, fandom shows. And so once it started really blowing up, like suddenly, like, I don't know, people are just like hitting me up on Instagram, like left and right and center, like fans asking about the music, like wanting to hear more about the music. And like that had always kind of happened, but like the scale to which it happens now is just is wild. It's really cool.
Yeah, because it's always been there for the last 3 years, but like for some people, and I felt it over here in Belgium too, I was pushing that show like for 2 years at people.
Yeah,
like,
and
this is really good. YouTube Red. What's YouTube Red? Do I have to pay for it? Is it like Netflix? Right. Does it have other shows?
Yeah. And now you get to be like, I told you so.
Yeah, exactly. So how did your collaboration with Zach come about? Did you work together on projects before Cobra Kai?
Yeah. So Zach and we actually both used to work for another film composer, Christoph Beck, who he's like big time. He did Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He did Frozen, Ant-Man, Edge of Tomorrow, just like huge shows, all the Hangover movies, big projects. And so we were both working for him and we met there. And just kind of immediately clicked as friends and collaborators. And it was just like a good vibe. And a few years later, when Chris was taking a break, so we all kind of scattered to the wind and we're doing our own thing. He and I did another YouTube show, actually, this show called Sing It, that literally nobody watched. But it was kind of funny. It was kind of like 30 Rock, except rather than like a comedy show that was like the show within the show, it was like an American Idol style singing competition. Okay. So a huge part of the show was actually doing like song arrangements of like Backstreet Boys songs and just stuff that the production could license the publishing for. And so we did that. And actually that was part of the reason why we got Cobra Kai, because it was a very like serendipitous kind of turnaround in that we saw in Variety or Hollywood Reporter that YouTube had just bought Cobra Kai and there was no information about it. Like nobody knew that like Ralph and Billy were going to be in it. Like we thought it might've been a reboot. Like we didn't know what, but we saw it was YouTube and we're like, hey, like we're really into like 80s nostalgia stuff. Like we should just make a reel and see if our agent can like get it into the right hands. Cause we did a YouTube show. So like maybe like, I don't know, maybe they'll go with a familiar name. And so we made this reel of basically what we thought the show might sound like, but really with no info whatsoever. And we just kind of set it off in the universe, and in a way that never happens in Hollywood, like it managed to get in the right hands. And like a week later, we were meeting with John, Josh, and Hayden as like they sent us the script and just wanted to talk about it. And we clicked with those guys immediately. And I think we got hired on the job 15 minutes after our meeting. Like it was just like a great situation all around.
And were you able to see some footage when writing some of the themes for the characters, or did you start on notes from the showrunners? When we met with them and got hired, they were about to go to Atlanta and shoot the first season. So we hadn't seen anything. We read the first 2 episodes, I think. And besides that, we don't actually usually like to read stuff before they're done shooting and they're back in LA, and then we can sit down and watch with them. Cause it's like, we're fans too. So it's fun to kind of go in cold and be like, oh my God, like what just happened? Okay. This is how we got to score this. Like, can you take me through the process on how you and Zach typically score an episode of Cobra Kai?
Yeah, totally. So we have that meeting I'm talking about. Like basically we will watch 1 or 2 episodes at a time with, we call John, Josh, and Hayden JJH. So I will probably just refer to them as that from here on out, the showrunners. Yeah. So we watch them with JJH and take a bunch of notes and sit there with our music editor, Andres. After that meeting, we kind of usually each have some stuff that we like have some ideas for. So we really like to let just like our passion like drag us in different directions. So I'll usually be like, hey, I had an idea for this scene. And Zach will be like, great, because I have an idea for this scene. And then we'll both go back to our places. We don't have a studio together, and just start like spewing these early sketches. And we turn this stuff around really fast. I'd say we do 2 episodes every like 10 days, but they're often overlapping in terms of like we're recording one while we're writing another, while another one is being mixed. So we'll spew for, a day or 2, and then we'll start trading them, and we'll start like, we take a lot of iPhone videos of like how stuff is working with picture and then send it to each other and then kind of be like, okay, this is, you know, this slaps, like send it over to me because I have an idea for what to add in like that bridge section. And so we just kind of trade files. Because we like came up together, like when we set up our own studios, they're extremely compatible. So so we have no problem like trading files and stuff. And then a few days later, we'll have finished everything and we'll send it off and we'll do a round or two of notes with the guys. And then, then we record, which is a whole other process because we record drums, bass, guitar, keyboards, all sorts of crazy synths. Although a lot of the synths we do when we just record them ourselves beforehand. And then we record a 70-piece orchestra for every episode. And we usually lump those like 3 episodes at a time and then kind of do the season finale, which, as you know, is always like insanely epic beyond belief. Yeah. We kind of do that as its own thing because it takes so much recording time. So there's a whole process there because like everything we write is in like what we call MIDI in the computer. And it's very specific, like the whole orchestra is laid out, but it's got to get turned into sheet music. So like, our orchestrator does like an inhuman job of doing that stuff super fast, like taking the MIDI, cleaning it all up, like spreading it out on the full score. And then we record and then we mix. Like it is a whirlwind of a project. Like our whole thing and the whole show kind of has this attitude is like, we're not going to cut a corner anywhere. Like we're going to give it like there was no reason to not lean in 200% on this show because it's like so freaking awesome. So like we just go nuts.
Yeah, I can feel you guys' enthusiasm and hype in the music. I started listening to the soundtrack a couple of weeks ago, like that Carol of the Cobras track from season 3. Totally nuts. You just start attacking people on the train and the bus. Just it hypes you up so much.
Oh yeah. That's really our goal. We more than anything, like we want the score to be fun. We talk about this all the time, but not like it's not making fun of anything and it's not like being silly. Like we just want it to have that kind of like fun attitude, like, even in the most intense fight scene where the stakes are so high. And the other thing we really care about is like making it all feel really sincere and genuine. Like, again, like we're not making fun of Karate Kid. We're not like making fun of 80s movies. Like when we do a training montage in Cobra Kai, like it's a sincere, genuine 80s training montage. Yeah. Whereas like every sitcom on TV eventually has like an 80s training montage joke where they do it's always Rocky. It's always Rocky. Yeah. And then you do like a fake one or you're licensing something and it's freaking lame. And like, we like at no point are we like making fun of the material. It's so sincere for us. And we want to go so hard in the like fun department.
No, one of my favorite episodes from season 3 is the Daniel Goes to Okinawa episode.
Oh yeah.
And I haven't seen the Karate Kid Part 2 in a long, long time.
Same. I had to rewatch it to get familiar.
I was watching it and I heard the music and the score and thought, yeah, this is Karate Kid Part 2. Like it.
Yes.
Even when I didn't see the movie like in 20 years, it felt like the Karate Kid Part 2.
We try really hard to kind of, I don't know, be evocative of that stuff. Even when there are times where the show will use the original Bill Conti score for like usually it's for like some kind of like specific flashback thing. And there are times when we will sprinkle a little Bill Conti, here and there, like a few notes at a time to kind of tie things together. But even when we're not doing that, which is 95% of the time, like we try so hard to just be evocative of the emotion, like what you feel as the audience. If we can channel the same feeling, then we've like done our job because it feels all from the same universe.
Yeah. And also I think in that episode, because I read you're a big Howard Shore fan.
Oh yeah.
There's a track called Secrets of Miyagi-Do.
Yeah.
I listened to it and I thought, this guy likes Lord of the Rings. And afterwards,
Oh yeah. yeah.
I was looking up information about you. Yeah, he likes Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, that's a major tour de force of like orchestral, I don't know, insanity. That sequence is fun. That's the scene where like Chosen and Daniel are fighting. And it's kind of like a training montage, but in a different way than like what I was mentioning before, like 80s training montage. Yeah. It's more of your kind of like Marvel-esque superhero training montage where like the main, like the hero is like getting his ass kicked a little bit by like this older, like sage wisdom type character. And because we hadn't really done that kind of montage with like an orchestra setting, sitting in our Okinawa, like we were smack in the middle of our like Okinawa palette. So it was like, well, let's do this and like lean into the orchestra a little harder for how we score it. Yeah. And so it turned into kind of a unique, I don't know. It's a unique track.
It's beautiful. You were talking about reusing the Bill Conti score once in a while. Was it difficult to make the music your own while still making it fit within these worlds? Because both Cobra Kai and even Camp Cretaceous are shows connected to a franchise with a definitive look and a definitive sound.
Yeah, we kind of had to, I'll give you actually our whole philosophy on like making it feel like Karate Kid, which goes a little beyond the Bill Conti thing. When we sat down to like write episode 1 in season 1, we were trying to figure out like what the palette is and kind of identified like 3 pillars that have crossover with the original movie in different ways. So like one of them is that like Bill Conti orchestral thing. Yeah. And it's a very spiritual sound. It's got all the like flutes and whatnot, which I usually play. And we did kind of come up with, there's one figure Conti uses from a track called like On to Miyagi's from the first movie. That's kind of this like boom, 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 boom. And we found that was simple enough that we could use it to kind of tie some other stuff together, because it's just like a accompaniment figure that is really just like outlining like a major or minor chord. Like it's not really anything, but it's like just enough to kind of tie stuff together. But in creating the full Cobra Kai palette, we actually were listening to a lot of the songs from the original movie, like the synth pop stuff, Young Hearts, You're the Best Around, Bananarama. Like, because to us, like, actually, we think most people who watch The Karate Kid and remember The Karate Kid, when they think of the music, they're thinking of the songs. They just don't know it. Like it's like that kind of like pumping synth pop is really like the part of the score. And what's cool about a lot of them is they're like co-written by Bill Conti. And so like the figures from the songs find their way into the score and the score into the songs. And we don't have original songs in Cobra Kai, or at least not yet, but we wanted a lot of the score to feel like it was influenced by that synth pop stuff. So there's a ton of stuff. It's like that, especially in how we approach kind of like the new generation of Cobra Kai. And then like our third pillar is like our Johnny's perspective pillar, because like ultimately like a lot of the show is from his point of view. And we just try to score him like the way he would score himself in his head, like badass 80s hair metal. And so we kind of identified those 3 pillars, and then it's just been about weaving them together. We don't like them to feel like separate ideas. Like it's all part of one big, paint palette.
I was going to ask about that because every character has its own theme. Johnny's more old school rock, Daniel's more whimsical, but all these characters change so much in personality over the course of the seasons. Do you change the score with them?
Oh yeah. I think that's a huge part of the reason why Zach and I have been successful in like scoring the show, and that it keeps getting kind of bigger and better and epic, is because like the score is highly thematic. There's like, I think we probably have like 15 at least individual themes that I could just like give you a music lesson in. I won't. But what it allows us to do is do a ton of like character development in the music as we go from episode to episode and season to season, because as you said, like everyone's kind of shades of gray. There's no good guys and bad guys, and everybody's got an arc to their story that's really important. And so the only way we can get to kind of the end of season 3, like the last 16 minutes of that episode are totally insane and totally insane from a scoring perspective. Like Duel of the Snakes, like is the big one on the album. Like, and all of that. I mean, that piece, it's 10 straight minutes of music. And there's probably not 5 seconds going on where someone's theme is not playing. And there's like a dozen of them that get used in that. And it's all because we've been planting them since the first episode of season 1. And it's like, you got to do all that legwork to like deserve the giant payoff. Because otherwise you're just writing a really, if it wasn't a thematic score, the end of that season would just be like, I don't know, a big, loud, soulless music cue that doesn't like pack you with the emotional punch. But since it's so thematic, it's like a real piece of film music.
A character like Kreese must be really rewarding.
Yeah, he's the best.
Because he goes from being this 80s cliche bad guy to someone with a really sad backstory. Yeah,
Kreese is, he's like Emperor Palpatine pulling the strings, but at the same time, he is a really sympathetic character. Yeah. And season 3 let us tap into that, which was so fun.
Also, what I like about every episode is when the Cobra comes on, it sounds like a game on Sega Master System booting up, like with that synth pop. Like it just works so good.
That is literally exactly what I like to hear. Like that, like we are going for the, like I've said, like we love just like making people feel like, some corner of their nostalgia, whatever corner that is. Like we try to access that in such a like genuine way.
I know this is a really on the spot question, but do you have a favorite episode or a favorite musical cue?
Man, that is impossible. It's like killing your children a little bit. The finale of season 3 really has it all. It's all like, while we're talking about it, like it's got the whole house fight, which, like you said, Carol of the Cobras and Dojo from Hell is one of my favorite tracks on our album. Which is like when Tori goes into the dojo in the back of the house, and it's like badass. It's got just like the giant orchestral finale of like Duel of the Snakes. That episode is some major payoff. I like, near and dear to my heart is the finale of season 1, the tournament, because that was kind of when it all clicked. I feel like that's when, for Zach and I, we were like, okay, this is our score. Like we had been setting up themes from, like I said, the first episode. But when you're doing season 1 of a show, it's not like you on that first episode, you're like, here's every theme for every character, because you don't even know who your characters are yet.
Yeah.
And like one of our main themes, which is a track called Quiver, doesn't show up until, Hawk flips the script at the end of episode 6. So it took kind of something as big as the tournament to bring all the characters together for us to take all our themes that we had set up in season 1 and kind of be like, this is what the score can be. Like, this is, what we aspire to every time. And then that informed us so much going into season 2 and season 3. So I think that was kind of one of the most important episodes for us in the process.
I think also what the score defined for me personally is it made it a little bit more about karate. If you rewatch The Karate Kid, there's a lot of kid, not that much karate.
Right.
This show has fights all over the place. And just
and the choreography is awesome too. Yeah, like the amazing. Fights are good.
But the music makes the one-shot tracks so good.
Thank you. Yeah, those are a lot of fun because it's like, it's kind of a music video in some ways. Like you're really enjoying like what I mean by that is like, because you're on the journey of the oneer, like you just kind of let the music carry you through the momentum of the scene.
Yeah. I was watching on YouTube, you did a live show at the Whiskey A Go-Go, Cobra Kai live. Is that something you would do in the future? Like again, because that's
the minute COVID is over, all we want to do is play another live show. We actually did one in Spain a little after the whiskey. There's a big film music festival in Malaga called Mosma. And they invited us there to play our set, which was a blast. And it is hard to even believe that we were like playing live concerts a year ago. Like, shit, man. I cannot wait to do that. But now, especially with the show being huge and we almost sold out the whiskey. Like it was packed when we played, and like nobody even knew what the show was, much less like that the music was cool back then. And now like, you know, our Spotify plays are like freaking off the charts, and people love the score. And like, I think we've got more music to play live. I think we cannot wait to do that again. What's really cool about the show is there are fans all around the world. And like, so we've been trying to identify like where people just like love Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
So we can do that, because I think there are a lot of cities where we could sell out a venue.
Absolutely.
or just like, you know, have a lot of people show up. It doesn't have to sell out.
If you do it in Amsterdam, people from Belgium will come immediately. So it's like a 2-hour drive. Yeah,
amazing.
Camp Cretaceous, because Cobra Kai is more like a spin-off continuation, and you can reference the 80s, while Jurassic World is happening now, and you kind of have to continue where John Williams and Michael Giacchino left it. How did you approach a show like Camp Cretaceous?
Well, it's interesting because like there's like some similarities in the task of like inheriting a giant franchise, except like I would say like there's almost no bigger franchise than Jurassic Park. It's like up there in the top 5, which is a little daunting. But since I had some experience in like taking on that kind of thing, the first thing I did was actually very similar to what I just described in Cobra Kai. Is I went back to all those scores in those movies, and like I'm a huge Jurassic Park fan, not as big as you, I would guess. But like, you know, when I was I guess I was like 5 when the original movie came out. I was born in 88. So,
87.
Yeah. So it came out in 93. I was obsessed with dinosaurs as a kid, like even younger than that. Like when I was 2, the only thing I wanted to do was like talk about dinosaurs and play with dinosaurs. And like, I had this like dinosaur encyclopedia that I just like memorized. I knew everything.
I learned how to read in one of those. Like that was my
amazing.
Before going to bed, this is a Dilophosaurus. This is a Velociraptor.
Yeah, I think that like, I actually love hearing like stuff like that. I think it's I'm going to not talk about music for a second, but like the way that like our formative experiences like that are so kind of important. One thing I always think about is like the reason I can type fast is basically from like playing StarCraft online when I was in like 5th grade. like I used to like love playing StarCraft, like these like online after school. And like all I did was type, and I sucked at typing, and suddenly like I could type really fast because like you just have to. And like, I don't know, that you like absorb all of those influences and they really actually do make you who you are.
I also think like when you grow up, you have like 3 or 4 things you absolutely love, but they define everything that comes next. Like I love dinosaurs, and then it went on to horror and creature movies and science fiction, Twilight Zone. It just
Yep. Well, actually, you literally just gave me the perfect segue back to what I was saying, which is I went and like, especially back to the original, you know, movie number 1, and kind of did like a breakdown of like, well, like, what is this score? Like you say Jurassic Park, you say John Williams, and people think like, you know, there's the main theme.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's kind of philosophical. It's brilliant the way they use it. And then there's what I call like the theme everyone really likes, which is Journey to the Islands. Bum, 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 bum. And then like nobody knows what's in the score besides that. And what it actually is like a freaking creature movie. It's a monster movie.
Yeah.
And a huge amount of the score is a ton of like 20th century orchestral techniques. And it gets like, there's some weird stuff, and it's got a ton of character, and it's freaking scary. And it's really the approach to a lot of those scenes is really like a monster movie. And so you've got the action adventure half, or third, which I would call the journey to the island aspect. Mm-hmm. You've got this sort of philosophical, what is like man's role or humankind's role in the realms of science world and like the beauty of nature. And that's kind of the main title. And then you've got this monster movie pillar. And I think it's something that Michael really nailed in Jurassic World is I think he is also a guy who is like really good, and he and I are friends. So we've talked about this a little bit, but he is a guy who's like really good at identifying like, those types of nostalgia things that make people tick. And I think I'm guessing, had the same kind of a realization that I did in being brought into the franchise, which is like really identifying it for what it is, which is a monster movie. And he is so good at that kind of stuff. I mean, even since Lost, he was like crushing the kind of aleatoric extended technique, like 20th Century Orchestra. And so if you've seen the show, that like a huge amount of Camp Cretaceous is actually like pretty scary. The music, it is intense. And there is a lot of like bending orchestra and like weird swelling and like sounds that you don't immediately identify maybe with the Amblin sound, but like it actually is kind of exactly what Jurassic Park always was.
What I love that you did is in the pilot episode, you didn't overuse that John Williams score.
Yep.
It pops up the first time they see a dinosaur and the first time they see a brachiosaur, just like in the movies, and that's it.
Yeah, well, I think the score would have gotten lame really fast if I was just like using the John Williams stuff all the time. And so to me, it's a really prescriptive task. And what was cool about it is everyone who worked on the show was really kind of looking for my input and like, where should we use like the theme? Like we got to use it somewhere. Where should we use it? And my, entire philosophy is like sparsely and tastefully, let's find our moments. And so in that whole first season, there's only a few times, like in the pilot, you hear Journey to the Island as they go through the gate. And then you hear the big theme when they're on the zip line. And I guess there's a little quote like right when they transition to the island. But then I don't think you hear the bum ba da dum ba da bum ba bum ba bum again until episode 7 when they're on the monorail, and it's a very different kind of scene. Yeah. Oh, actually, there's a brief quote when Darius and his dad are talking about Jurassic World, and you hear it on piano, which is just kind of like a cute little thing. But again, in episode 7, you hear it on piano, and it's at this really kind of I don't know. It's one of these moments that is just really Jurassic-y. And what's funny about it is there is like a narrator on the monologue who is making the same like observation I just made, where it's like, this is so very Jurassic. And they're like riding a monorail through this completely ruined theme park. And like the kids have just realized that they like aren't really friends and have nothing in common. And there's just kind of like a slow, like kind of poignant take on the theme there for like 20 seconds. And I feel like that's the perfect amount to use it. It gives you like the exact emotion you need and the exact reference you need. And then like, there's no reason to use it anymore. The one Williams thing that I had a lot of fun using that I bury in a few spots there's only a few spots where it actually matters but the Velociraptor theme, the bum, 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 bum thing. Yeah. And like at the end of the pilot episode, when they're in the raptor pit, like, or like sneaking around the pit and they don't know it's the raptor pit. Like I like kind of move that all throughout the score, and it really feels like the first movie to me in a cool way. But otherwise, like I kind of just wrote my own themes for everything because I needed once I had identified all the, like, those pillars, like I said, about what the sound should be, it was like, okay, well now I just need to execute the sound, and like kind of do our thing for it.
Yeah. A great episode was in season 2, the Ben and Bumpy episode is better just them.
That's one of my favorites.
Just because the music does a lot there. It's always him talking to the dinosaur and a lot of just him sitting, waiting, walking around, foraging.
Yeah.
So the music tells the story there.
Yeah, that was a really special episode. And like, you're really just trying to capture Ben's alone. He's scared. And how do we tell that in, again, just like a really tasteful way? Yeah. I had set up this bumpy theme starting in the second episode, I think, when Bumpy first hatches, and it's been in there the whole time. In fact, one really fun moment is like in that monorail scene that I was mentioning again, or like later in that episode when Ben's like on the roof, you hear it in a really kind of like heroic way, but again, like high tension thing. And this was kind of the not the final time, but like the real time where I got to take that theme and kind of expand it into a full episode's worth of score. And I also wanted this episode to just like sound a little different because it was all being told from a different lens. So there's some sounds in there and some accompaniment figures that we like don't really, hear in the rest of the score. And I really like that. And I don't know, one thing that was an influence for me for it is like, I love like Miyazaki movies, all the Studio Ghibli stuff. And there was something about, I don't know, just like this kid being like alone in the jungle, scared with his pet dinosaur that like really made me feel like I was in a Studio Ghibli movie. And so like, I'm not sure I didn't like tap into anything in particular. In the rain. Yeah, exactly. And it just like kind of made me feel that way. So I was just trying to get the music to make me feel the same way. Yeah. Like I'm sure you can tell based on everything I've said in this conversation, but like composers, like we work in feelings, like it's all about triggering feelings. And so like I use myself as the guinea pig when I'm working, and it's like, well, what do I want to feel here? Like, let me tap into that in the most genuine way possible. Yeah. And I think if like, I don't know, I guess it's just kind of one of my artistic philosophies. If I like let that steer me as a compass, like people probably like, I'm guessing other people will have the same reaction and it'll be successful.
Yeah. It's an amazing score. I loved it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Also, same question again. Do you have a favorite episode? Camp Cretaceous? Favorite moments?
I don't have a favorite episode. I do have a favorite. I have a couple favorite scenes, but one of them that is really a favorite is the Bioluminescent Cave in that's a good 106. There's a lot, and it's a long sequence too that like there's kind of 3 parts to it, and I love all 3 parts. First, they like find this waterfall, and there's a theme there that gets set up that you hear in season 2 in the watering hole later. It's kind of this like magic of nature theme, you know, and when all the science is going right and like the cave is glowing, and then like the dinos are just being dinos like that. Like there's like, ooh, I'm getting like goosebumps just like saying that. Like, it's just like, there's something magical about it. And so that's kind of my theme for that. And I just think that waterfall scene is really underplayed in a beautiful way. It's like piano and choir. And then you get into a rather dramatic, emotional scene in the boat where like all the kids are in different pairs on the kayaks, and they all sort of have some interpersonal drama. And like Brooklyn and Kenji are talking, and like Kenji suddenly sounds like a really reasonable, smart guy for a minute. And like Darius and Sammy are talking, and you just, there's this really simple like harp and vibe thing that sort of takes us through that then sort of blossoms when we see the glow in the dark Parasaurolophus, Parasaurolophuses. I don't know how you plural that. It is a mouthful. And I kind of veer into this very early 20th century impressionistic score, which is totally original, but it's something that John Williams did a bit of in the first movie. There's the cue called My Friends the Brachiosaurus that is just like, you might as well be listening to Debussy. It's totally insane, like how it's scored in the most beautiful way. And so my thought in approaching this scene is I was like, well, I'm not going to do what he did, but like, I also love impressionist music. So like, let me do my take on that. And so it felt, I don't know, it felt like a nice time to step into the tradition a little bit of just like writing a beautiful piece of music for a beautiful scene. And I'm just so freaking pumped about how it turned out. Like, I love it. So that's definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah. And you got to score something we actually never saw in the franchise.
Exactly.
Which is also cool.
Yeah.
I'm about to let you go, but
okay.
I have 2 more questions, and then you're free to roam about. Favorite movie and or TV theme?
Okay, let me think. Oh man, whenever I get asked stuff like this, I always like blank on the one that I actually mean.
It's an awful question, I know.
I've got some really random favorites, but I gotta think. I mean, okay, you know what? Because we're talking about John Williams, I will pick John Williams' score, but none of the stuff we've been talking about. I absolutely freaking love the score to Catch Me If You Can. And I love all of the themes in it. I think it's such a great, like, it's just got this like mid-century jazz orchestra approach to it. Like, it just sounds like the time period, vibes and saxophone. I grew up as a saxophone player, so I just like love that kind of stuff. I love that score a lot.
And I'm a big fan of James Horner. So I was wondering, do you have a favorite James Horner theme?
Oh, yeah. Big time. Man, James Horner is... So I always say about James Horner, like, he's the guy who got to score all the movies that I wish I could score. Like, everything the guy does, like, I would have killed to score like Apollo 13, for example. There's something about that, like, I don't know. It's like a space Western weird, like it's kind of like it's patriotic, but it's like humankind in the, exploring new places, but like not in a Star Trek way. Yeah. And so that, I mean, I freaking love Braveheart. I love Braveheart. I love A Beautiful Mind. So I actually play penny whistle. And I'm not that bad at it. It's going to sound awful over Zoom, but like, so like, what is that? What's that Braveheart theme? That's like, no, that's the planets, but, what is the freaking princess one? It's that same kind of B minor thing. I forget how I'm just blanking love on it.
You just reached out of the screen and pulled out like a metal flute. And
oh yeah. So I love playing penny whistle, and so as a result, like James Horner's like throwing penny whistles everywhere, even when it's like not appropriate. There's just something about that like 90s film music sound that is, I don't know, got a lot of penny whistles in it, and I love the 90s, and I love film music from the 90s and movies in the 90s, and so. Yeah, I too am a big James Horner fan.
I'm a big fan of Batteries Not Included.
Oh yeah,
because he had to do like a 50s, 60s swing cafe sound.
Yep.
But also like the early 90s, like Balto and Land Before Time.
Balto's amazing. Land Before Time is amazing. Casper is amazing.
Oh yeah, Casper. I just bought it on CD. Obviously, I bought it together with your score. Yeah.
Oh, sick. That makes me very emotional. Wrath of Khan is obviously like ridiculous. Yeah, dude, the guy can freaking write. I will say, you know what? Back to question one, favorite themes in general. I was recently having this conversation with someone, and so I'm gonna bring it out. I do think one of the single best film score cues, like single individual pieces ever written, both to picture and away from picture, because a lot of times there's like music that like when you listen to the soundtrack, it's great, but it doesn't always work great with the movie. Like you got to do both. Is the cue called The Enterprise from Jerry Goldsmith's Star Trek score. And it's like that sequence where you like, it's the first time you see the Enterprise, but you don't really see it until the end of the sequence. You kind of see different parts of it. And like, you feel like the cue is taking you through and you're like hearing hints of that blah, 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 theme. And you just get like a snippet here and a snippet here. And the way it develops is freaking amazing. And then you like get it. And it's freaking awesome. I also, since we were talking about Westerns, I love Westerns, and Bruce Broughton's score to Silverado is like way up there.
Oh, it's been a while since I've seen that one.
Yeah. That is just a freaking huge score. It's crazy.
I think my most controversial opinion on music scores is that Jerry Goldsmith's score to Alan Quatermain and the City of Gold is as good as John Williams' Indiana Jones theme.
Oh man, I honestly don't know that score, so I gotta go. Yeah, let me go check it out.
Yeah, it's really.
I mean, Jerry, he was like he's a masterclass in film scoring. His themes are so good, but his actual, like, what I think is amazing about Jerry Goldsmith is it's when he's not using a theme where the music like really shines. And like, that's the kind of stuff that I like aspire to, when you're just like churning and like, there's a lot of stuff going on and like, you want to keep it interesting and like find colorful ways to use the orchestra and like feel all that power. And like, he was just a master at that. Yeah, I don't know.
I think we can go on for this quite a while.
Oh yeah, for a while.
So Leo, this was really fun. Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thanks for reaching out. It was really fun.
Dit was Ben je nog aan het kijken voor deze week. Voor de geïnteresseerden, zowel Cobra Kai als Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous zijn te zien op Netflix. De soundtrack van Cobra Kai is te horen op Spotify en is ook te verkrijgen op CD via een site die heel graag al mijn geld wil, lalalandrecords.com. Je kan Leo zelf volgen op Instagram en Twitter, waar hij vaak nieuwe muziek dropt, dus gooi hem zeker een follow of een complimentje. Ik dank jullie voor te luisteren. Aarzel niet om iets te droppen op Facebook, Instagram of Twitter als je genoten hebt en de show wilt delen met uw volgers. Ik was Xander de Rijke, jullie horen mij volgende week weer terug en dan bingen we weer iets anders in Ben je nog aan het kijken.
We do not train to be merciful here. Mercy is for the weak. Here, on the street, in competition. A man confronts you, he is the enemy.
Met Xander de Rijke.